Yep, here we are. Another Primarch. Fulgrim is actually a commission piece for me. Why somebody would ask me to do a commission is beyond me, but here I am. So I figured this would be a good opportunity to outline kind of what I do when I take on a commission, and maybe you can learn something from it too. So if you want to succeed as a commission painter, the ideal, if I'm asking somebody to paint something for me, here's my ideal scenario. I want them to pay a price that feels like they're getting a good deal. If I charge them a small amount and they're just wowed by the quality of it, that's the pinnacle. That's what you're really trying to achieve. But you don't want to break yourself timeline wise, because then you'll just never make any significant money doing this. So the balance is always going to be, can I push up the quality but keep my time low? So starting with Fulgrim here, I got the model unassembled, so I have to assemble it. I have no idea how long this will take. Knowing G-dubs and their assembly process now, I'm assuming it's going to take me, a couple hours. So I'm going to shoot for that. Once he's assembled, I don't know if I'm going to have to do sub assemblies. As a general rule, I don't want to do sub assemblies. That's just more time. Time is key here. But I don't want to not be able to get to parts. And Fulgrim is obviously all over the place parts wise. So I'm going to try to assemble them as fast as I can, but also with a good quality. I don't want any bad lines or anything like that. So I'm going to shoot for a couple hours. Hopefully I can get it done in 2 hours. So the client wanted something that looks pretty close to the box art, and I think that this is a very detailed, involved paint job by the box or by the heavy metal team. There's a lot of color fading, color transitions, things like that that is hard to achieve with acrylics, but I think that I can use some little tricks and little oil paint, a little airbrush fading, some contrast paint through the airbrush, and I think I can get a pretty close copy of the box art without a whole lot of effort. Okay, so now that I have the plan, I need to have a rough idea of goals for how long it'll take me to do. So I think I can do a lot of the prep, the airbrushing, those types of things in about 2 hours. I think the oil washing would be about an hour, 2 hours. And then touching up will take as long or as little as I can possibly squeeze in. I do want to keep this to around a 10-hour project if I can. And I think that's a good goal. And I think I'd be happy with the price tag for that if I was the client. And so we'll see if I can do it. And here we have it fully assembled. And it took me nearly twice as long as I thought it would. So not a great start to this project, but there was some debate on whether I should do sub-assemblies or not, and at the end I just decided to keep them all as one model. One thing I did find is the base and the basing around him would be very complicated to get to if I didn't keep him separate, so here I am breaking my own rule and keeping him separate from the base, but I'll just start priming him and figure that out as I go. And so I'm just starting with this dark brown color. I'm been really happy overall with the Stynylrez primers. They have good coverage, they flow through the airbrush well, they don't seem to gum it up. I've been happy with the standard colors, the black, gray, and white, so started branching out into these other tones. So playing around with the different colors, but still ended with the pure white. And here I am ready to start painting. So first up here, I'm using this cardinal purple to do the magenta across the model. It's very striking magenta loincloth or back cape thing he's got going on here. So just hit that, and then his flashing little symbol here on his tummy that's been pulled back, that's showing some exposed muscle underneath and whatnot. And then most faces benefit from a little magenta in there. Then I switched over to this darker purple, I think it's deep purple. And so following the box art, just trying to map out where this darker purple is, kind of fading from the magenta to the purple. So far, happy with how it's coming through the airbrush here, but find out later that it dries really sticky. I don't know if that's the thinner I'm using or some trait with pushing it through the airbrush, but it seems to work okay, and not upset with it. And now I'm using the aptly named snake green to do some of the teal turquoise parts of his snake body. So I'm hitting that everywhere. I kind of see it on the box art. Tends to be on the undersides of most of his snake parts. He's also got, some teal horns, so I hit those. And then you can see here the color transition from the purple to the teal here on the wings. And on the top side, it's all teal. So just try to follow that. You can see kind of where I hit the in-between on the wings there. Now I've switched from the airbrush to the actual brush to hit some of these details that I wanted to make sure were a little bit more focused. So like this phoenix orange on the claw, or his little pincher tail. So I wanted to make sure that was a bright starting point with the intense express color. So just cover that everywhere. This pterodon turquoise for kind of his undersuit. I didn't really see an equivalent from the express range, so I went to what I was comfortable with. And then just wanted to transition from that lighter teal, that lighter blue, to a darker turquoise. And then, because the airbrush stage would get metallics all over the place, I just painted all the metallics by hand. And as a final step through the airbrush here, I'm going to pop out with this flesh color any bright spots of interest. I don't want to go clear up to pure white. Just wanted to hit some of these fleshy bits, hit his face, hit his wings, just give it like another little pre-zenithal before I knock it all back with the oil wash. Now it's time for the magic to happen. So I used a bunch of different oil paints here. I don't know if I really needed to. I just like having this magenta paint is kind of the main one. And I just wanted some darker tones, darker purples, darker blues to kind of blend in and kind of work with that as an accent point. So just dropping it in here around this open sore wound thing that has the Slanesh symbol underneath. So hitting that with the magenta primarily, letting that kind of do its thing. And then I'm switching over here to the purple on the darker sides, just following the same map that I did with the airbrush. So just following there. I'm not too picky at this point of mixing the oil paint between the wells that I have. It blends pretty well on its own. I'm trying to keep them somewhat separate, but you don't have to be precise here. The goal of the oil paint is to, one, provide recessed shading, but also add depth of color, where you can blend some of these bright, intense colors around, and then just have it transition into the darker colors around it. So you can see after I've covered the whole model in oil paint, go down the recesses of his cloak there, covered the metallics, swords have blue on them, and then I'm going to start buffing out the majority of the color. Now I'm not trying to wipe off a whole lot here, I just want to blend each of these layers together. It's a little dark obviously at this point, so I want to buff some of that out, but was never intending to to get to a bright color from cleaning. So just kind of blending the colors together. Follow that same map of colors that I was hitting before. And I think you'll agree this looks pretty good. Gives a lot of variety of color, a lot of recess shading for very minimal effort. It also works just as well on the metallics. I didn't take too many good shots here, but this metal, this gold is looking way better after the oil wash stage. Got a lot of magenta to it, a lot of deep purple that really just is a good counterpoint to the rest of the body. So here he is after wiping all the excess oil off. If you look closely, you can still see that some areas are still wet and shiny, but get a pretty good idea of how the whole model looks now. I would say it's about 90% finished. From this point, you just gotta pump up the highlights and then knock it back down with some glazes. If you look carefully, the one sword, I wiped off too much oil, so I'm just letting that sit on there again. Plan to buff that out a little bit more once it has some time to set. So I may have varnished him at this point, but I don't know if that was necessary, if I was just being impatient. But you can get a better look once all the oil is dry. Really clean, really nice transitions. Overall, really happy with how it looks. Now onto the highlights. And it would be a shame to not use Fulgrim pink on Fulgrim, so I thought I would use more of the purple and hit more areas, but really just wanted to pop this focal point of the model here with Fulgrim pink. Now I sped this up to 2 times speed, but I wanted to just show that I'm not being super careful here. I'm just got an overloaded brush, and then I'm just hitting quick lines, these quick horizontal lines, just hitting the brightest points. And I kind of regretted doing this, to be honest. After the oil paint stage, it did look really good. I was happy with how it looked, but it just wasn't quite bright enough. And the box art, this is like a key point, so I just wanted to make sure that I was a little brave, and I went up a little bit higher than I would initially think. I was a little bit rougher and just trying to get those texture lines in here. So you can see how it is, how it looked after I was done with that. And the plan is to come back in and fade that with the airbrush. So go a little bit higher than you think you need. And the same thing here with the horns. I'm just trying to hit the edges and hit these horizontal lines. I'm not trying to be super careful, but you just got to pick them out. So don't stress, but just hit them. Get those edges. Use the side of the brush. Get each of those ridges. Anytime that you're doing a commission, you got to be aware of how much time you're taking on each spot. And if you're going to spend time hitting details like this, you got to make sure that they count. So on his belly, on his horns here, these are major focal points, as well as his face. So we just want to make sure that we're hitting it. And if it's 1 or 2 highlights, it makes a big difference with all the under layers we did. So here it is after that first color, that first initial highlight, and it's not nearly enough. So added a little bit more blue-white to it. Just going to pick out each of the corners, making sure that I really make those edges of the ridges of the horn pop. So I didn't spend a ton of time here. I am trying to move pretty quickly, but this is a detail that you need to make sure looks good. Also on Fulgrim, there's some amazing opportunities to paint some gems. So these are my favorite turquoise or teal colors. It's the So Flat range. And then I used a little bit of the Dark Sea Bend just to have that darker top edge of all these gems. So when you first learn to paint gems, you try to go opposite of the light. You have like the light goes through the gem and so it's dark on top and then is brighter on the bottom as the light passes through. So you want to still feel that here, but I've been experimenting with some additional spot reflections here. Call this the smiley face reflections. So got like the smiley face on the bottom and then two eyes on the top, and it just seems to sell a little bit more of that true gem look. And then here I'm just adding the final bright spot reflection. For the gold here, I'm just adding in some magenta into the metallic colors just to help bridge the gap between the highest highlights here and the oil paint that I used to shade it all. So just adding a little bit more of the bright silver to it and just making it pop a little bit. Most of this, because it's a chaos armor, I'm just trying to do scratchy lines and whatnot to show some wear. And here's the finished Fulgrim. Try to show you all the angles here. He is very hard to get the camera to focus on. I'll try to show you each of the details here. I spent just over, I guess just under 11 hours painting him. And I think for that time commitment, he turned out really, really good. Hopefully this inspires you to try a timed experiment yourself. See how fast you can paint something that's a really high quality. So in summary, try to block every color out with the airbrush, come back in with some oil painting, punch up the details and the highlights, and then knock it back with some focused glazes or airbrushing to tie it all together. As you can see, it's a lot of different things going on, but I think it looks cohesive. I think the parts that need to stand out look good. I can say with 100% absolute certainty that this is the best painted 10 hours and 45 minute Fulgrim in existence. And I'll catch you in the next video.